People often believe loneliness comes from being alone. But sometimes, loneliness comes from being surrounded. By attention, by kindness, by assumptions. Lin Fang and Mike were learning this quietly, each in a different country, each in a different way. The kitchen in the American restaurant grew louder as the evening approached. Oil crackled in hot woks. Plates collided softly as they were stacked. Orders were shouted in short, impatient phrases, a language of urgency understood by all. Lin Fang stood near the sink, sleeves rolled up, her hands moving with a practiced, ceaseless rhythm. She no longer needed instructions or supervision. Her body had learned the choreography of the kitchen. Someone passed her a box of fresh vegetables, and she nodded in acknowledgement, her movements never breaking. Another shift had begun. In this chaotic, high-pressure environment, speed mattered more than conversation. Efficiency was the only currency. No one asked personal questions. No one expected explanations for your presence here. It was a world that was both brutally efficient and mercifully anonymous. During a brief break, she stepped out into the dining area to refill water pitchers for the tables. A man sitting alone at a small table watched her carefully as she moved from one party to the next. As she approached his table, he offered a smile. "You don't look like someone who belongs back there," he said, his voice casual. Lin Fang paused, the heavy glass pitcher still in her hand. "I work here," she replied, her tone neutral. The man chuckled, a sound that was light, almost friendly. "Sure, for now." The words hung in the air. She recognized the subtext immediately. The familiar way people believed they understood her situation better than she did. In this country she was learning, a woman alone was rarely seen as simply alone. She was assumed to be waiting for something, or searching for someone. A temporary state, a problem to be solved. Later that night, long after the last table had been cleared and the last customer had departed, she sat in the narrow, cluttered break room, sipping lukewarm tea from a paper cup. Another woman, a coworker who had been there for years, spoke softly beside her, her voice tired but kind. "You're smart," she said, her eyes appraising Lin Fang with a knowing look. "You won't stay like this forever." Lin Fang listened, her gaze fixed on the steam rising from her cup. "People like us," the woman continued, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "We have to be realistic. We take what we can get." Lin Fang simply nodded. She had learned early on that disagreement invited curiosity. And curiosity, she had found, often curdled into judgment. It was easier to agree, to be the person they expected her to be. She did not say that once, not so long ago. She had signed contracts worth millions. That men, powerful and influential, once waited outside her office, hoping for a moment of her time. Some pasts are too heavy, too complex, to carry into small rooms filled with quiet desperation. They don't fit. On her way home, she walked slowly through the vibrant, electric streets of Chinatown. Neon signs flickered, casting red and green light onto the wet pavement. Shop windows, filled with glistening ducks and exotic fruits, reflected fragmented, distorted images of her face as she passed. She approached an international hotel, a monolith of glass and steel. The lobby doors swished open automatically as someone exited, spilling a river of warm, golden light onto the dark sidewalk. She stopped. Inside, she could see people sitting comfortably in the plush chairs of the lobby cafe. They held delicate coffee cups, their heads tilted back in quiet laughter. Soft music drifted out, a gentle, unintrusive melody. She remembered walking into places just like this back in China without a second thought. It was her world. Back then, she wasn't proving anything to anyone. She simply belonged. She stood there for a long moment, an invisible observer at the edge of a life she once knew. Then she turned away. Not because she couldn't enter, she had enough money in her pocket for a coffee, but because she wasn't ready to be misunderstood there. Too. In that space, she would be seen as an outsider trying to get in, not someone who was simply revisiting a familiar scene. Meanwhile, in China, Mike's days had begun to settle into a predictable, comfortable rhythm. He taught his classes in the morning, sharing his knowledge of Western literature with eager students. He had lunch with his colleagues in the bustling university canteen, There were occasional dinners, arranged by his department, just to welcome him and make him feel at home. People were generous with their time, with their invitations. "You must like it here," someone would say, a phrase he heard almost daily. "Life is easier for you." Mike smiled every time he heard it, a polite, practiced smile. Easier was a complicated word. Yes, his teaching load was light and his apartment was subsidized, but ease did not equate to fulfillment. In his spacious, modern apartment, everything was orderly, almost too orderly. One entire side of the wardrobe remained untouched, the wooden hangers empty and still. The extra set of pillows stayed in their plastic wrapping at the top of the closet. Sometimes, he would open the refrigerator for no reason, just to look inside, as if half expecting something new to have magically appeared. A container of leftovers that weren't his. A bottle of juice he didn't buy. It never happened. One evening, he was invited to dinner again. The round table was full, laden with an extravagant array of dishes. The conversation was lively, a mix of Mandarin and broken English, filled with laughter and goodwill. A colleague, flushed with drink, poured him another glass of baijiu. "You should settle down here, Mike," he joked, clapping him on the shoulder. "So many women admire you." "A handsome foreign professor!" Laughter erupted around the table. Mike laughed too, raising his glass in a gesture of thanks. He did not explain that admiration was not intimacy, that the constant attention did not replace the quiet comfort of true companionship. He was a popular novelty, an interesting guest, but he felt profoundly unknown. After the dinner, he walked home alone. The campus lights cast a soft, gentle glow on the pathways. Students passed by in small groups, their voices and laughter echoing in the night air. For the first time in years, he noticed that no one he passed asked him where he was going next, or what his plans were for the future. There was a certain relief in that anonymity, and also an unfamiliar, hollow emptiness. Back in his apartment, he filled the electric kettle and switched it on. Steam soon rose from the spout, fogging the window. He poured the boiling water into a mug, holding its warmth carefully between his hands. Drinking hot water had become a habit now, something he did without thinking. It was a small local custom he had adopted, a tiny piece of this place that he had made his own. And so their parallel lives continued. Lin Fang was learning how to disappear politely, to fold herself into the expectations of others to avoid scrutiny. Mike was learning how to exist without explanation, to be a welcome presence who was never truly seen. She was defined before she even spoke a word. He was welcomed without ever being truly known. In different rooms, in different cities, at the same late hour they both paused. Lin Fang, in her small basement room, folded her clean clothes neatly, creating precise, sharp edges, as if perfect order in her physical space could protect the chaotic memories within. Mike, in his silent kitchen, washed a single cup and placed it upside down on the drying rack, as if the simple repetition of a routine could somehow replace the presence of another person. Neither of them knew it yet. They couldn't feel the invisible threads that were slowly, silently connecting their separate solitudes. But something was shifting. Not loudly, not dramatically. It was a subtle change, quiet as a change in the season, but just enough to make the silence in their lives feel heavier, more significant than before.